Hello,
Mhm.
everyone, and welcome to Purple Curtain Podcast. This is John,
This is Rusty.
and today we're mostly going to be talking about the additional material that's been put out for Sing Out. So we're going to be
Hmm.
talking about the B-side videos and also the individual videos made by 4th Gen members. But first, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Saito Yuri photo book, which will be coming out fairly soon.
Hmm.
I'm very pleased about this because I think it's always nice when members are able to graduate with something specific that fans get to keep and take away after their career is over. Especially
Hmm.
because Yutan's not going to get any kind of graduation concert or something like that. So this is something nice for fans. And
Hmm.
also based on the photos we've seen so far, I'm really looking forward to it.
Hmm. Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything special to happen for her, so it was a nice surprise when they announced the photo book. And although Yuri might not be the most popular Nogi member, she certainly played a prominent role throughout the years, and she was a Senbatsu staple in the early days. And even in the later days, she frequently come back from the summer singles, so she's definitely not someone that's just insignificant. So it's good to see she have a photo book, and I'm sure it won't do too badly.
Yeah, I mean, Yutan has got her fan base isn't as big as some of the Senbatsu members, but it's definitely a very significant and stable fan base, I think.
Hmm.
I think,
Yeah, like
she's...
her handshake. Hmm. Yeah,
Sorry, please continue.
I know. I was just saying, yeah, her handshake itself, for example, isn't top notch, but it's been pretty stable, I think. So she definitely have a core group of fan base. And just off that, I think it's a good idea to give her a photo book, and I'm sure many Noki fans who might not have her as a Oshi will take a look as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think she's definitely a member who, is well liked by a lot of the people who aren't Hiroshis as well. And,
Hmm.
she's a very nice person, so I think she's got a very high sort of approval rating from Nogizaka fans. And I'm
Hmm.
looking forward to this. I kind of think that, there are some people who talk about photo books who have, like a sort of artistic or, technical knowledge of how the photos are composed and things like that. That's not something I really have,
Hmm.
I can't really talk about the artistic merits of any of the shots that have been put out so far. But one thing that I do like when I read photo books is if the photo book does a good job of conveying the personality of the member. And I
Hmm.
feel as though from the photos we've seen so far, I think that this photo book is going to do that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Another thing I like about it is that it's in Bali Island, I think, and I feel like the photos have been able to convey the scenery of that place and make it work with Yuri so far. Like some of my favorite photo books usually have member that's able to sort of immerse themselves with their location, if you know what I mean. Like for
yeah,
example, Leica ran to Malaysia, and you can get a sense that that's Malaysia, and she's like she's enjoying herself and working well with the location.
yeah,
And one of my favorite photo book is from Lika, the Lika from Kayaki, and she was in Greece. And you can also
Greece,
see
yeah,
the scenery, and it's very, very prominent. On the flip side, some of the worst photo book that I seen is the one from Matsun, unfortunately. Like if you don't know beforehand that she's in Hawaii, I thought it's very obvious that she's in Hawaii. Like you can barely tell it's in Hawaii, and I thought
mm,
that was really disappointing. So I think Yuli's photo book so far at least accomplished the fact that you can kind of tell it's like in Bali or in that region, right? So and she, it kind of fit her. She's showing her personality in that place, so I like that.
yeah. I mean, you can sort of feel her positivity coming through in the photos, which is what I was looking for. So I'm glad that it
Hmm.
seems as though this is going to be the kind of PB which can deliver on that.
Hmm.
And also, I like the material that's been coming out as well, like the videos and stuff.
Hmm.
I always enjoy photo book Twitter accounts and stuff. It's fun to watch them.
Yeah, it's funny that Nogi don't have their own Twitter account, but their photo book account are so prominent.
Yeah. So I'm definitely really looking forward to it. I'm going to sort of I will try and get hold of a copy of it, but that's
hmm
money allowing, obviously.
hmm
Um, if I ever get a chance to read it, though, if I know someone who owns it or something, I'm definitely going to try and take a look if I can.
hmm Yeah.
So moving on to the B-side videos,
hmm
I'm just going to talk about the B-side videos in the order in which they came out on the YouTube channel,
That sounds fair.
or at least in the order that I got the notifications for them anyway. So the first one would be, have we talked about Noyona Sonzai last time?
I don't think so.
So, yeah, Noyona Sonzai's video is based around sort of if it I it feels as though maybe there's supposed to be some kind of metaphor there, but basically it's a video which involves teacher Mayan and like teaching teenage Asuka. So it's kind of grimy. It definitely didn't do a lot for me to sort of like improve the song.
hmm
I
Yeah,
wasn't
like
into it. I wasn't into it. It just kind of made me feel like uncomfortable more than anything else.
yeah, I think yeah, I feel that too. Like I think it make a lot of people feel uncomfortable, but I also think it was an interesting. Like it's put into it concretely put out the difference, I think, in how we see things and how, like in Japan and not just Japan, in East Asia, I feel like there's a lack of awareness that this is very inappropriate. I think there's a general lack of public knowledge, public education on this aspect, and it's often romanticized, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I'd say that like as far as I can tell, in East Asia, as long as both parties are like over the age of consent, nobody feels as though there's anything wrong with relationships. Although like I always kind of feel as though the power dynamic between the people involved
hmm
is a really big deal. So when I see something between teacher and student, it makes me feel very uncomfortable because there's no way that can ever really be like an equal relationship.
hmm Yeah, like I feel like that's the thing. They don't seem to be aware of this concept of power disparity, and that it will make relationship very one-sided into power dynamic, and that's very unhealthy.
Hmm.
And I think although like in the schools and stuff, they are like rules and they're like the teachers, they are being told you can't engage in a relationship with students, and that's wrong. But like there's not a deep understanding of why, and it results in things like this envy. Like I
Yeah,
thought,
well, I'm glad that you're the one that's saying this, not me, because like I don't want people to get the wrong impression about like the beliefs of people on this podcast.
no worries.
Yeah.
I like because I guess I've been absorbing this culture a bit more, and I've seen this a lot. Like I've seen how this kind of thing are romanticized. There's in several famous work even, like for example in Card Capture Sakura, there's
Hmm.
there was a teacher-student relationship, and I mean back then when I was small, like I wouldn't see anything wrong, but now that I grow up and and read stuff and come to read concepts that I wasn't aware of back then, I can come to see how this is very problematic, and I realized that it doesn't seem to be a concept that's commonly acknowledged in East Asia and Japan, and I think this envy is kind of an example of that. And I thought from a social science, I guess, perspective, I mean, obviously it's problematic, but I just thought it was interesting how there's a lack of awareness, and that's quite unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's a shame because it feels
hmm
as though there's like an interesting thing going on with the like with the melting ice representing Asuka in some way or something like that.
Mm,
But to be honest, I didn't want to go back and rewatch it in order to try and figure out what was going on there.
I thought it could have been so much better if they got rid of the romantic aspect that was implied. Like, Asuka was playing a basically a young girl or boy that have difficulty with breathing, I guess. Like initially we saw that mask and we thought she was just playing someone who was very edgy, but it turns out like she can't go out, and I thought there was some interesting concept there. And
it's funny because when I was watching the video, I saw the mask and I just thought that she's a painter.
Oh,
I thought she's like a painter who's spray painting inside the house.
oh, that's yeah, that's another explanation. And yeah, but I don't know. Some people thought she was just being edgy, or playing someone who's being edgy. But then midway through the MV, like the window and the way their body gesture is like implying she can't go out.
I mean, if they were trying to make Asuka edgy, that's a crime in and of itself.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, yeah, I guess in summary, the MV have some interesting concept, but ultimately because they throw in their teacher-student romance thing, it end up not working.
So, moving on, the next one we're going to look at is Heiko-sen, which was the video involving Momoko, Yoda, Rentan, Kuboshi, and Tamachan, which I thought was like a really, really fun video. I think the song is like nothing special, but I think the video made as much of it as it possibly could. Like basically for people who haven't seen it, it's kind of like, these members are, firstly, like Yoda bumps into Momoko and switches bodies with her, and then they both run off the bus, and all the people that they bumped into, they end up switching bodies with. And obviously, I think like body switching is something you see like all the time in Japanese culture aimed at teenagers. But this is one thing that I really liked about this is that anytime I see like a body swapping thing in films, the thing that always really annoys me is that both body and clothes swap. And even if you believe in the concept of people swapping bodies, like their clothes aren't going to swap as well. It's like it's like the magic works on the humans. So one thing about this that I really liked is because the clothes don't swap, you can always tell who the person is, even though their face has changed, because that will be the person who was wearing those clothes originally. So even though everyone's sort of running around and sort of like bumping into each other and like changing bodies and everything, you can always tell who everyone is.
Yeah, there's a joke I saw based on this concept. So like midway through the MV, how Momoko and like everyone was dancing and they're wearing like police clothing, the mechanic clothing, student clothing. So someone was joking saying, those 5 are actually 5 old men dancing. It's not the girls dancing.
And that's the thing. It's like when I sort of like watched it, I thought, well, you know why these guys are dancing, don't you? Because like these guys, all in their 40s or 50s and finally get a chance to sort of like inhabit like a sort of like young body. It's not like there's no aches and pains. It's like they finally get to enjoy their life for like about 2 or 3 minutes. It's like they can be a young person again, and then they will have to go back in the box because apparently none of them are cruel enough to just sort of like leave our heroes hanging.
It's a nice concept that these old people can enjoy their youth for a brief few minutes before going back to their old bodies. I think personally I like this MV a lot, and I think it's like one of the best Noki MV in a long while, actually.
It's something which is like genuinely entertaining to watch while you listen to the song. And like I think again, like I said, I think this makes the most of this song. I think this sort of gives the song the kind of energy that it was looking for.
Yeah, I agree. It enhanced their song. It makes the song better for me, and I feel like it had the right mix of everything. There's a little bit of a storytelling, but there's also dancing, and there's a choreography that works very well with the song, and there's just the right amount of members, so there's the right amount of time for each member.
And there's cosplay as well, which like like at long last in a Nogizaka MV, well, actually, you get to see Asuka in Yoda and Maid costumes, don't you? In
Yeah, but yeah, you get to see Yoda with glasses looking at Kodan, so that's awesome. And please, then time please Momoko and
I also like I like Mechanic Yoda a lot as well.
yeah, her like being so short will make it easy to go down and fix things in their car or stuff.
So that's Heiko Sen. I
Mhm.
definitely think, like if you're a third gen fan, it's definitely a good watch.
Mhm.
Moving on, we've got Yonbanmei no Hikari, which is the fourth gen song,
Mhm.
which is kind of set in. It looks to me as though it's some old Meiji era school, I think.
It kind of remind me of the school fourth gen ran for their Gakutabi episode.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely ancient.
So yeah, so it's set in this school, and it kind of made me think, like while I was watching it, that this song actually it kind of makes me think of, like a kind of like mid Meiji era period drama. It actually
Mhm.
sounds like the theme song for something like that.
Mm.
Because it's modern, but it kind of feels as though it's evoking a nostalgic sense. So I feel as though the setting is quite appropriate for the song.
Mm. Yeah, maybe maybe the songwriter tried to be a bit retro to kind of like how Secret Graffiti was very Showa,
Yeah,
even though it's a very good song. Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, it's how do I put it? It's not produced in the style of a like 60s or 70s song or something like that, but it
Mhm.
feels as though it's trying to evoke some kind of feeling.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, it's like a
Mm.
like a feeling of like a nostalgic longing or something. So I
Mm.
thought that was quite appropriate. But the other thing that I like is that the screen time for all the members is very, very evenly allocated.
Mm.
And it is a video which is trying to introduce these members, so that feels very appropriate.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. It's like I don't think there's a too clear dynamic in who's more popular and who's not for Fortune. I mean, we can kind of get a sense of who is and who's not, but I don't feel like there's an obvious like, oh, this is the rising star or the center of Fortune,
Yeah,
and
because I
it's good
mean,
to, yeah.
during the dance sequence outside the school,
Hmm.
near the end of the video, you can see that Sakura is the center, and that
Hmm.
Sayaka and Ayame are the
Hmm.
two members either side of her. But up
Hmm.
until that point, you wouldn't have really been able to tell who the center of the song is.
Hmm.
And while, for Sakura that might be a little bit unfair, I do think that the video is doing a very good job of trying to make sure that everyone gets to know all of the members in fourth gen, which is, the point of the song and the point
Hmm.
of having like specific gen songs on singles.
Hmm. Yeah, besides that, I also think the MV is deliberately created in a way to remind you of the Virgin song. Um,
Yeah,
like Sanbame no Kaze and Yonbame no Hikari there. The MV is kind of similar. At least that's what I find. And
yeah,
so I can help and compare and contrast them.
and I think it sets up a sort of very clear comparison point for the specific feel that they want to go for with these different gens,
Hmm.
because it feels as though third gen were positioned to be a more sort of like outgoing group. So it's like this is the group which is gonna have the responsibility for taking Nogizaka forward in the immediate
Hmm.
future, whereas fourth gen are more classically idly.
Mm.
They're sort of they're a group which is like I think intentionally positioned as being less outstanding but more comfortable.
They definitely
That
do
feels like what
feel
they're trying to go for anyway.
yeah. they definitely feel more reserved and timid to me compared to Virgin.
Mm.
Hmm.
So I think there's nothing particularly special about this video, but I think it does do a good job of trying to bring in all of the members in 4th gen.
Hmm.
And, to sort of like try and create a certain kind of atmosphere around them. I think that's what it was intended to do, so I feel as though the video is a success.
Hmm. Yeah, I personally the song wasn't my favorite, so I think it done as much as it could with the song. So yeah, it's a pretty decent MV.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Moving on, the last B-side which I think has a video. I think there are a couple of other B-sides which don't actually have them yet.
Hmm.
Is Casoro, which is the Undergirl song.
Hmm.
So yeah, this is like in stark contrast to Yonbanme no Hikari. This is much more focused on the center for this song, which is Ranza. And it's kind of I feel as though there is like a story running through this MV which I don't quite get, but I feel like I might understand with repeat viewings, where all of the members are in a town which is deserted, so it doesn't feel as though there's been some kind of weird like disaster which has like wiped out all the people in the town, but the Nogizaka members are the only ones who are there. There's probably something connected to the lyrics of the song which would explain this if I go back and try and research it, but I didn't have the time, so.
No worries. I mean, I think it was very. If this story is very abstract and very ambiguous, so I don't think it was very obvious that there's a story. So, yeah, I think that's a deliberate design. So it's not necessarily like a problem if we can't find a message or a theme behind it.
Yeah.
It could just be a dance song too that like showing them dancing, but they don't want to be too boring, so they just look around for some occasion.
I did want to mention that I do actually, during the dance scenes, I do actually really like the area, like the sort of room that they found for that, with the sort of wood panel floor, and then all the sort of there's lots and lots of windows with white frames, so you've got this sort of dark floor, and then this sort of like bright area sort of going up from the floor to the ceiling. I think it does make for a very arresting image, so I kind of feel as though that area was very well chosen.
Yeah, they definitely chose some pretty good area, and the dance was pretty decent too, so I think it worked well, and I like the scene where Hazuki came up with the big cone.
Yeah,
that was a highlight.
I've made a note of this as well. Like it's a very, very Hazuki-like moment where everyone is carrying along traffic cones, and then Hazuki just has an incredibly massive one.
Yeah, it showed her personality really well.
Yeah. I also like the costumes in this as well. Both the ones which are used like during the dance scenes, but also the ones during the story scenes as well. And I like the sort of mix of things that they've got the members dressed in. So like, for example, I think it's like Ranza is dressed in a very sort of like loose summer dress, but in contrast, Renachi has a kind of like fashionable athlete style outfit going on, with a kind of like a sort of like big puffy skirt and a sort of like shell suit top. And I like the way that it kind of feels as though, I mean, maybe I'm just imagining it, but it does feel as though the outfits were chosen by people who are at least vaguely familiar with the personality of the members. Like they do all feel like something those members would wear.
I can see their member being involved in their coordination, since many members are good at fashion.
Yeah.
And in particular, I think she's one of the members who are better at coordinating. So I can definitely see like input from them, and yeah, I think it's good that if that's the case, that's good, because it helps give us a more like or coordination that express their personality a bit more, and that definitely is very useful, especially considering how this time around unders only have like 11 or 10 members, so
Yeah.
there's relatively more screen time for each member.
And I also, I also kind of feel as though I have to say that I think Ranza did a really, really good job. Like, she does feel like very magnetic when the camera's on her in this video. So, yeah, like, I think she's not my favourite member, but I feel like she really, really outdid herself, and I was very impressed.
hmm I do think she's one of the better performer among Loki unders, so I'm happy to see her do well here. I remember reading a comment saying they think this is the best Danze Center song,
Hmm.
and this isn't my favorite song, but she didn't center many songs, so I think that's kind of sad, but that's kind of I can understand where that's coming from, and if this is your favorite song, then yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Although I personally
so,
like her album song a bit better from the under album.
but I think this does make me think that, Ranza is one of the members who's closest to getting in Senbatsu on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel, based on her performance here, I do feel as though she deserves it,
Mm-hmm.
because competition for the last few Senbatsu spaces is very intense.
Mm.
So maybe it should go to members who've shown in this kind of way that they can perform.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure she's kept in under simply because they want someone like her in center spot, like someone they feel like can hold her forward. It's kind of like the logic they used to keep Himetan in unders for a long while.
Yeah,
And it's not the best reason, but I mean, if she can get back to Senbatsu comes the next single, it wouldn't be so bad.
yeah, because that kind of brings me back to one of my continuing obsessions, which is that I quite like to see an Undergirls song centered by Junna, because I kind of feel that she shares that same kind of magnetic personality when the camera's on her.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much on variety shows, because I kind of feel as though Junna sometimes is slightly reticent when she's not sure whether she's supposed to be the one telling the joke or not.
Mm.
But I think, when the camera looks at her, um, I think she always looks really good. So I'd actually quite like to see Ranza move to Senbatsu, at least for a couple of songs, and Junna take her place, because I feel as though she would bring the same kind of intensity to the role.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that's just personal stuff, though.
no, I think Juna's definitely more of a performer than a variety person. There's a lot of second gen that's much more that's much better at variety than her. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that can help her because yeah, she's not getting too much attention. So and she can definitely use some more
But
attention.
anyway,
Hmm.
moving on from the B-sides, also Sing Out contained a lot of individual PVs, and this time they're by 4th Gen.
Hmm.
So we don't know much about 4th Gen yet, so I went through and I watched all of them, and I just wanted to just like give some like short impressions about what I got from them,
Hmm.
because obviously these are all only about a minute or so long. I think
Hmm.
Yuna's is the longest one, and it's 2.5 minutes.
Mm.
So Ayame,
Hmm.
did actually write a song and sing it, and the
Hmm.
video is her doing her song. I think like each of the videos has like a sort of splash screen where it says who was responsible for each part of the video, and Ayame is credited with Daiji, which is a word which I think means something along the lines of titles.
Hmm.
But I didn't see anyone credited with the kanji for lyrics. So I think that what this is saying is that Ayami wrote the lyrics for her song, but they're referring to where the lyrics are written down on the screen, and they're referring to them as Daiji. Because I don't see the kanji for lyrics on her splash screen.
Hmm. That's interesting. I didn't pay attention to that. I just assumed it's written by someone else,
Mm.
and it's really interesting if Ayame is writing the lyric. And she does have her interest in calligraphy, though they didn't show that much in the Nogizaka rap.
Mm.
So I can see her being someone with an interest in writing her own lyric, and that would be very cool. Like it would be like a continuation from the Malika bonus PV, which were always some classics.
Yeah, because I might be wrong about this,
Hmm.
because I might have just misread the credits at the end of Ayame's video, but I do think it's saying that she's written the lyrics. I think.
When the full MV
Um,
come, when the full bonus MV come out, there might be more details, and then we will be able to tell for sure whether she wrote the lyric or not.
yeah, but I like it though because during the song, Ayame like sings about her feelings about becoming an idol, and then she has a sort of like little imagination spot about what she might do in the future.
Hmm.
And she has like an imagination spot where she imagines herself like doing adverts and stuff in the
Hmm.
future. But I think that there is actually a good reason to compare her to Marika here, because Marika also wrote songs about like the emotions of being an idol, like what
Mm.
it's like to be an idol. So I feel as though Ayame's song here parallels that in the same way. It's not as good
Hmm.
as Marika's songs, but I kind of feel as though if that's the bar you're going to set, everything's going to seem quite bad, because Marika's individual videos were always my favourite ones.
Hmm. Yeah, it wasn't
Um,
my favorite song, but it's definitely a song, like a very cute MV. I like the MV a lot. It might be my favorite MV. I mean, depending on how the whole thing looks like. But if it's like if all the bonus video are roughly similar to the previews, then I think Ayame's one might be one of my favorite. And
yeah,
yeah, even if it's not my favorite song, it's really well expressed.
yeah, because Ayame I think is like a bad singer, but she's got a lot of character to her voice.
Hmm.
We've sort of talked several times about Matson's singing style and
Yeah.
how it's like Matson's like a bad singer, but she's very characterful, and I think
Hmm.
that Ayame has a lot of the same thing.
Hmm.
So she's a bad singer, but I enjoyed listening to her.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And it feels as though she's come up with something here, so that's
Hmm.
also good.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to go through these videos again just in the order that I got the
Hmm.
notifications.
That's
So the
fine.
next one is Mayu's video.
Hmm.
And Mayu's video is one where it feels as though Mayu receives a letter which she thinks is a love letter,
Hmm.
and it sort of like asks her to go to a certain place, and then she keeps getting dragged. Or it's kind of like it's set in her school, and she's kind of like dragged around the school, sort of on various tasks. So it feels it's like a kind of like light comedy basically,
Hmm.
where like Mayu's just a kind of like doofus who's being dragged around for no apparent reason.
Mm. It does fit her character, although I thought it was one of the. It feels a bit like one of the lower budget bonus videos.
Yeah,
Which
I think it's interesting that she's the only one who's wearing her Nogizaka uniform.
I thought her Kaya was too, but maybe I'm wrong.
I tell you what, while we're talking, I can actually look this up because I feel like maybe I've just stuck my head out there and said
Mm.
something I shouldn't have said.
And
Um,
no, I think most of them didn't wear uniforms, so it's definitely one of the more rare decisions to
but
make.
I think it's interesting because it feels as though um, Mayu wants to be wearing her uniform, doesn't she? I think like Mayu feels as though like one of the members who joined Nogizaka kind of as her last possible chance to be an idol.
Hmm.
So I think she feels like particularly grateful for the chance. I think, there are members, like, I'd say that probably Mio feels as though, for example, she might be a bigger fan of the actual group, but I think Mayu feels as though she's particularly grateful to them. And I think that, like, that explains the uniform.
I can see the logic behind
Well,
the
maybe
decision.
I'm reaching, but I want to believe in her. So, also I looked it up, and you are right. Seda is also wearing her uniform in the video.
But I think it's only those two, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
So, yeah. I mean, have you got anything you want to say about Mai's video before we move on?
No, I don't have too much special thought about it.
Okay, fair enough. The next one is Yuna's one, which I really liked, partly because it's so very silly. But like in her video, Yuna steps in some gum, but her gum is actually a kind of like purple gum monster. That's like stuck on her foot. It looks a little bit like the plankton from SpongeBob, the monster she steps in. And she kind of like has like a little bit of a kind of like sadistic spot where she kind of like drags the gum monster like under her shoe a bit, and then it turns into like a guy. It's like a purple man with I think he's got slightly pointy ears. Has he?
Maybe I can't recall like a pointy head or something. I forgot, but yeah, it's definitely like a weird dress up.
and she has a kind of like she has a bit of a kind of Samuel Beckett like conversation with this gum monster man that doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, it was a pretty pointless conversation.
It's interesting because I think it's actually quite a good video for expressing Yuna's personality, because Yuna feels like the least idly out of all the fourth gen members. Like she feels, like unusually low key for an idol. But this video kind of like has like a weird sense of humor to it. It's got this kind of like weird sense of humor based on, sort of like ideas which don't really go anywhere. So I enjoyed watching it.
I feel like it definitely has the potential to be very good, depending on what they do in their full video. But yeah, I at least it's creative. It have some special idea there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to their whole thing.
Yeah, so that's Yuna's video. And Sayaka's video is starts like a boy walking down an alleyway, and he sees Sayaka like in a box, sort of like dressed up as a cat in a sort of if anyone remembers Mayan dressed up as a cat with like the cat ears on, it's exactly the same kind of setup. And Sayaka asked the boy to take her home in the way you would sort of like take a stray cat home. And I think it's funny because the boy seems very conflicted because like he thinks, isn't this cute? But then he's also like, I can't take a human girl home with me. It's like the boy knows Sayaka is a girl and not a cat, so he can't take her home. But he's also like, do I really want to walk away and just ignore what's happening here?
Yeah.
So, and also Sayaka is one of the members who like there is a song playing during this video, and I'm pretty sure it's Sayaka because it doesn't sound like a professional singer doing it.
Yeah. The voice sounds like her, so I was assuming it was her. And if it's her, then I like that. I like to see members sing in their bonus video. I usually like those songs a lot.
Yeah.
So if that's her, that's a cherry on top of cream. Actually, the MV seems pretty interesting. The idea might be a bit cliche, but I think there's a nice twist in that the guy that's not a cat, that's a human.
It's
And
like it's very lame moe.
yeah, it can almost be like one of those philosophy dilemma question, like the tram question. And here's a human cat. Do you take it home? It's
It's
human, by the way,
it's
but
yeah.
it's also a cat.
The whole idea seems like just almost parodically lame.
Yeah.
I feel like it's supposed to be that way.
Mm. Yeah, and yeah, you have to keep in mind these bonus videos probably don't have the largest budget, so
No. Well, this one only lasts for about 50 seconds, so
yeah, hopefully the full MV, the full PV won't be that short. But yeah, I like some stuff here. I like the song in particular, so I can see good stuff happening here.
but also like I think Sayaka is very popular on my T list with sort of like people who just like find her too cute, basically. So
Mm,
I think she knows what her fans are seeing in her, and she sort of just like dialed it up as high as it can possibly go.
yeah, I think that like playing a cat that fit her character really well. Um, I think in principle she's the one that run Juliet the most, right? Like when she win a role, she always win Juliet.
Yeah,
So I think these are signs that that's her character, and she's just going to go hard on being very cute, and that's where her fan will come from. And yeah, I think this MV kind of this personal PV also showed that side of her.
so next up is Saya's PV.
Hmm.
Saya's PV is set in. It's probably not her room for privacy
Okay.
purposes. But
Yeah.
like like Saya is lying around in her room on a spare day and sort of like talking about how she kills time and like describing some of the stuff in her room.
Hmm.
Um, and this kind of feels as though like Saya can like sometimes feel a little bit gloomy, but this is a much kind of like brighter, cuter side to her.
Hmm.
And if she's come up with the idea herself, like that does say something interesting about maybe her lacking confidence, and maybe we'll see a different kind of side to her in the future. I actually
I would
really
like to.
like this one. This is one of my favorites.
I would like to see her brighter. I feel like the current her, which gave up a bit of a gloomier, less confident feel, might just be because of her teeth. Like
Yeah,
she
it
doesn't
kind of
smile.
feels a little bit like Tama-chan also didn't smile that much when she first joined the group because she had like crooked teeth, and I think Tama-chan was wearing braces, but then elected to have them taken off and have surgery instead.
Mm.
And since then she's sort of like been, like smiling a lot more and a lot brighter. And I kind of think that Saya might make the same choice.
Yeah, Noki have a lot of people that went through something similar. Like, Chiharu also had bad teeth way back. Yuri also have not like crooked teeth, but there was like what do you call that? Tiger teeth. So like a lot of Noki members used to have bad teeth, and then they went through surgery, and I feel like they usually smile more after that, especially as you mentioned, Tamajang.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like,
like I've got bad teeth, and it's sort of like it doesn't do a lot for your confidence. So
yeah.
I kind of feel as though Saya's lack of confidence might well be tied into
Hmm.
her teeth. So
Yeah, if
I
she's able to.
I just hope she gets confident, whatever
Hmm.
solution she takes for that.
Yeah, like yeah. So this MV might be her attempt to like go around that image. That's a bit of a gloomier image, and who knows? Maybe in the next few weeks or next few months, she will go through Noki Dental like many of her senpais, and she'll be a more brighter person.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what it takes to
Hmm.
give her confidence, like so be it, really.
Hmm. Hmm.
Next up is Sakura's
Hmm.
video. And Sakura's video, it seems to be like a video telling a story about a girl who dumps her boyfriend because of like internal feelings of emptiness and being unable to relate to people.
Hmm.
This kind of feels like it's a theme which is more common in Japanese culture than it is over here, like the idea of people kind of almost sacrificing themselves by cutting themselves off from people who they feel their influences, they feel like they're a bad influence on someone, so they cut themselves off from that person for that person's benefit.
Hmm.
And it seems to be what's happening in this video. I've got to be honest, it's kind of like my Japanese is like pretty good, but it's not perfect, and I kind of feel like I may have missed something here.
Hmm.
And Sakura is the third member who sings.
Hmm.
And I actually really like Sakura's voice. It kind of, I've written down that it feels as though it's halfway between Na-chan and Misa, because it's got Na-chan's kind of cuteness to it, but it's got Misa's kind of like rounded quality to the kind of like tone of her voice.
Hmm.
So yeah, like it's nice to have someone who feels like another good singer joining the group.
Hmm. Yeah, Sakura definitely seems to be a very good singer, and I also like the fact that her bonus video, her personal video, seems to have a strong backstory. It reminds me of the classic, the bonus video classic that Noki had. Like Marika's very first bonus video was also kind of deep. Like there's just two people talking, and you can get a sense that it's very, very artistic and very. There's like some message behind it. Well, it might not be clear. It might be a bit abstract, but there's something going on, and it's something that makes you think. And I think Sakura's bonus video have a chance to be a classic like that. But even if not, it's at least have a good song that showcases Sakura singing very well.
I think it's interesting as well because like the character Sakura plays in the video sort of refers to herself as being like a karapo, which is like this. It's like a sort of like onomatopoeia for like like there being absolutely nothing inside whatsoever.
Mm.
And I think it's interesting because it's like the opposite of what you'd expect an idol image to be.
Hmm.
So I think that like Sakura actually kind of like has the potential to be like quite a bold idol persona if she's kind of
Hmm.
willing to like play that kind of part so soon in her career.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I can see her taking up that kind of characters if she so desire.
Hmm. But I just like I think it's interesting that she's like Sakura feels like the most pushed fourth gen member.
Hmm.
So I kind of feel like it's interesting that she's willing to be so boldly unidol-like so early on in her career.
Mm.
I think like that's like that shows like great potential there. To, like just to sort of like be herself.
Hmm.
So like I'm very pro that.
Hmm.
Um, Moving on, we have
Hmm.
Um, Yuri's video, which is Yuri's video is about her practicing to sort of like try her hand at rakugo.
Hmm.
And rakugo is it's a kind of humorous storytelling based on. I mean, like in England, I don't know about America, but in England we definitely have this phrase, shaggy dog story, which is a story which kind of like, like it's a story about events which happen but don't have any particular meaning or plot line. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what Rakugo is like. It's telling a story with, like no particularly deep meaning, but sort of with a kind of like humorous thread running through it.
Hmm.
Um, we don't actually get to see her doing any Rakugo. It's just about the practice. But I think it's funny because you watch her practice and Yuri is really, really bad at it. It's like I'm not a confident speaker either, to be honest. But
Hmm.
Yuri's like practicing, is so lacking in fluency that it's just really funny to watch it actually.
Hmm. Um, I think it's a good throwback to the Nogi Rakugo musicals. Actually, not musical, stage play. Have you seen those
Yeah,
before? Actually,
Joshiraku, yeah.
it is a musical actually. But yeah, Rakugo, if done well, can be pretty fun. There's a manga based on Rakugo, and that's the original work where Nogi did their musical for, and Nogi had three different teams doing these musical play, and it was a classic. It was very fun. If you know what's up, of course. If you understand what's up, it's very enjoyable. And I don't know how Yuri will do, but potentially if she can be as fluent as how her senpai did back then for those Akuka musical, it can be a very entertaining bonus video. So hopefully she'll do well.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got Kaki's video.
Mhm.
Kaki's video is short.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I kind of wasn't able to capture the sort of like understand the dialogue 100%. So all I have written down in my notes here is it looks like a fancy lipstick advert.
It does. It's so short. I barely remember it, to be honest. Like all the other previews are significantly longer. So Kaki's it's hard to say what it's going to be like because we don't really know what it's going to be like. Like there's not much to go on.
Like it seems to be like the narration is talking about, you know, like people coincidentally meeting, but I couldn't follow it, to be honest. My Japanese knowledge fell down, and I didn't know what it was all about. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait to see what that's all about.
Yeah, it will be the surprise after bonus videos.
Yeah. Next up is Sada's one.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell exactly what it's kind of what it is, but it kind of feels as though it's a kind of post-it note like advert, where, you know, like Sada keeps sort of like popping up and like giving like a reminder of whatever was written down.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, very cute when she appears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like hers a lot, and I was pretty surprised to discover that among all the 4th gen bonus video, it's the one with the lowest view. So, I guess liking Sei-chan is an acquired taste.
I think Sada she feels a lot like, you know, like on her first impression, she does feel like a Ojo-sama like character, but she also feels like that kind of character, but the type where, you know, they've taken all the sort of free time they've had, you know, and they try and make as much fun of it as humanly possible. Like he does still feel like a Ojo-sama like character, but like you know, like the one who'll sort of like defy her. She feels like the princess who's going to sort of like defy her evil king, the father, to rescue all the heroes. That's the kind of person she feels like.
That's a great concept for a musical for her.
Yeah, I hope she does it.
Yeah, that'd be great, and maybe that'll boost her popularity. And I don't really get it. Like even if I don't know, like Noki is known for Ojo-samas, so like I don't see how that could be a problem.
Sada actually feels like the first real one they've had that's come along in ages.
True. Although I mean, Ichiki-chan's brought up, and she's
Ichiki-chan in ages. It was his first gen.
That's true. I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't see. I mean, she's popular in principle, and in Gakutabi she seems fun enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like Sada. I want to see more.
I do like the short part in their bonus video preview where they show her dancing ballet though. So she gets to showcase that a bit, and yeah, that adds to the notion that she's Ojo-sama.
So next up we've got Mio, and Mio is, I didn't actually know these people, but Mio is like reading the comments on Mio's video. The two men that she's with are YouTubers. You know, like presumably quiz YouTubers, because Mio's video is all about setting up a Nogizaka quiz show. Again, like it's sort of like Yuri, it cuts off before we really get into the sort of like meat of the that like there's no quiz in it. It's sort of like talking about setting it up.
Mm-hmm.
But like I sort of again it fits in very well with her character. Like Mio is the
But
designated otaku for fourth gen.
yeah,
She's a
uh,
designated idol fan. So
hmm. Yeah, like I think the quiz idea is pretty fun, and initially I was surprised it was getting so much views. And later on, I realized two things. First, that you mentioned is that those are actual YouTubers. They're not some random people they grab to like just do quiz with her.
yeah,
So that helped a lot. Second thing is that like their quiz thing, it's called Quiz Nog, I think, and I thought they're just parodying random quiz show, but no, it seems like it's a legit actual app or something. So Mio's bonus video have actual legit YouTuber and actual legit quiz app backing
yeah.
up.
I
And
think for the first time ever, I feel grateful to like YouTube commenters, because without them, I wouldn't realised like why these guys were significant.
hmm yeah, so it'd be fun. I imagine with like legit quiz YouTuber and a legit not YouTuber, a legit quiz app helping out. I imagine the quiz would be quite fun.
So yeah, moving on to the final video, which is Ray's video.
hmm
And Ray is a kind of a teen who's training with her master to be a local hero.
hmm
And when he's ill for the day, she takes over. So again, this sort of like like Ray has a kind of sort of like has a kind of face that kind of like looks quite like serious.
Mm.
But like really, she actually kind of feels like she might be the most immature out of all the members in fourth gen when you sort of like see her like talking and acting a bit more.
I can see that, yeah. Um, the idea is interesting enough. It's yeah, as you mentioned, she's also wearing her gay pride, I guess, part of
Yeah,
her.
yeah. I kind of mentioned this on Twitter. It's kind of like Ray's costume, like her cape, is a gay pride flag. I don't know whether that means anything, but I hope it does actually. It would be
She's
nice if she'd put it in there as a kind of little reference.
she's either celebrating Taiwan or she's fighting to make Japan the second country in Asia to legalize it.
Yeah, or she's from Mauritius, because coincidentally the Mauritian flag and the gay pride flag are the same flag.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's interesting. hmm
I actually checked. It's not even like it's upside down or something. It's the actual same flag. So either Ray is promoting gay pride or she is from Mauritius. I don't know which one.
I also thought it was interesting that she, like in the MV, they wrote Ray, like Ray, and that's their heroine in their latest Star Wars movies. So
I'd say like Ray is a very heroic name if you're
yeah.
if you're a big consumer of like Japanese anime and manga. Ray is a name which will come up repeatedly over and over again.
So she does have a heroic name at least.
Yeah. So that's all the videos. I think like on balance, I think that probably Sakura's one is my favourite. It really feels like a lot of thought and effort went into that one.
Yeah, I think Sakura one have a strong potential to be a very strong classic. It does remind me of many older bonus MVs that I always think back to. So yeah, there's potential there. And for me, besides Sakura's, I also like Ayame's. It's just very cute, and
I like Hayame's. It also feels as though she did put a lot of effort into it as well.
Yeah, and like just there's so much thing happening and there's so much transition. I quite like that. Like it's quite enjoyable and very cute. I also like Seijan's, but apparently I'm pretty alone in that respect. So
I think it's like it's very very cute, that one. Like all the sort of like moments where she pops up into the frame. It's just like yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that on teasers there's a lot of people who like Hayakawa, and I'm not.
Yeah, it's a shame that it's another, like, she's another example of a member where it's a shame that the English speaking fandom is just a tiny section of the fandom, because English speaking fandom seems to be very fond of her.
Yeah, like I mean, she's not alone, I guess. Like English speaking fan also like Juno a lot. At least our circle like Juno a
Yeah.
lot. And then there's Kotoko, but although to be fair, Kotoko might just not be selling handshake ticket. And I mean, I think a lot of people like Kotoko. She's just not selling handshake tickets.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's people like that.
So yeah, like moving on, like also talking about the fourth gen, we've got our first example of fan shipping. The fourth gen, which has like actually come from Mayu, where Mayu posted a picture of her and Kaki, referring to Kaki as her husband. So Mayu obviously, like is very clued into what she's got to do to get fans on side. And I think it's interesting. She also referred to Kaki as being like the one fourth gen member who like all the other members are kind of ever so slightly obsessed with. So like interestingly enough, it kind of feels as though Kaki might be fourth gen's Wakatsuki in a like in a surprising twist.
Yeah, I thought, that Kaki, the first person Kaki reminded me of after seeing that is Juna, actually. How, like, even though Juna is not the most popular member, fan base wise, it's like, you can tell everyone obsesses over her and, like, cling to her and, like, get very touchy of her. And
Well, I think this is a new frontier, because for the first time we've got like a member who the other members who are obsessed with, who's not even remotely Ikemen like. Like Kaki is sort of like like a sort of like cute girl who quite often has her mouth hanging open. So it's an interesting twist on the member that member the other members are obsessed with.
True. Although she did win Romeo the most for their principal.
She did win Romeo the most.
So
Yeah.
maybe there's a side of her that we haven't seen yet, and it would be quite interesting if we get to see that side of her soon.
So yeah. Also, like Ika-chan and Reika have both been like unveiled as like prominent members in plays. I don't know much about either of them, but I do know that I really liked seeing Reika dressed up in sort of like faux 20 style.
Yeah, they cosplay look very interesting. Like it's definitely something, if I was able to watch, I would definitely try to watch. As for Ikujan's, I'm less sure does it interest me as much as Eika, but she's playing with a lot of prominent actors. Like if you look at the poster, the three dude beside her, like they list them in true row, and the one to her left, right, and bottom are all very successful actors. And the fact that she's playing the lead role and these guys are like playing the supporting role to her is very good news to me. It really shows you that Ikujan's really doing well when it comes to musical play, and doing so well that these prominent actors are playing a secondary role to her.
Yeah, Ika-chan's musical career shows no signs of slowing down whatsoever, does it? Nothing but good signs there. So, we won't really know much more about these plays for months because they're still in production. But it's it's good to see. I also think it's quite interesting to see Reika appearing in one again as well.
Yeah, I think they cast low-key doing pretty well on the musical front as well. Like her musical play aren't as prominent as Ikujan's. Ikujan often play with either big wigs or in like very famous musical like Les Miserables or Romeo and Juliet. But Reika's musical always interests me, like the concept, the story, and the dress she gets to wear.
I also think it was quite interesting in that the concept art for this play does look a little bit like over the top and slightly exaggerated, which I think is perfect for Reika.
That's true.
Like I love over the top Reika so much.
she can showcase her popcorn potential to the fullest.
So, like, moving on, like, we don't want to end up talking too much about the TV shows, but we did want to just mention that, we talked about Gakutabi a little bit in the last episode because at the moment it's been serving as like something of a vehicle for third gen members. And in the most recent episode we had Rei, Sakura and Mio all sort of going to a school which is closing down because it's in quite an isolated area. It no longer has enough students to remain viable, and sort of Rei, Sakura and Mio all sort of like hung out with and like supported the students kind of like seemingly in the last couple of weeks before the school closed down. Especially they spent quite a lot of time with the two girls who were in the oldest year. And they sort of like spoke with those girls quite a lot. They sort of like accompanied them when they were cleaning the school, and they also like made these two girls like a couple of like souvenirs for when they graduated. And it's like, it was a very, like as someone who sort of like lives in a kind of like rural area which has an aging population, I mean it's like a bigger town than the one that they went to, but it still kind of affected me because I can sort of see this pattern starting to happen a little bit in the place where I live. And I think it's something which is like quite a big problem for like more isolated communities in Japan, because obviously Japan's got a very aging population. And like the general pattern of movement in like all developed countries is from the country to the city. Like urbanization continues in pretty much every developed country, no matter how no matter how far it is along the kind of path towards urbanization. So there are a lot of communities in Japan which have this problem of an aging population, and there's not, like not only are young people leaving the towns, but like the people who are already in the towns are already quite old to begin with. So there's a lot of communities in Japan where the schools are closing. So it was kind of like like quite a sad look into something which is probably just going to keep happening more and more in the future.
Yeah.
And we sort of see like Mio is kind of like is sort of a slightly wacky extrovert character, but she's like very affected by it. And also like Rei, like seems to be like someone who cries quite easily. She was like very affected by it as well.
Yeah, it's good. I think the fourth gen member who went there did pretty well. To be honest, I kind of wish they sent at like one member who was a little bit more prominent. I mean, the fourth gen member are pretty new and probably not that famous, and it just seems it might be a little bit more respectful if Noki has sent someone a little bit more prominent, like maybe a third gen, like Yoda or Momoko.
I see your point.
Yeah, but I did think those three did as the best they could, considering everything, and I thought it was very well done for them.
Yeah, I thought like they all showed like a like a genuine empathy with the people they met. They seem to be like genuinely interested in their lives. So it's like I think they like showed themselves, all three of them showed themselves in a really good light. Unfortunately, it does seem that like that was the end of that season of Gakutabi. So we kind of expected all of fourth gen to appear, but it seems as though Ayame, Yuri and Saya will not actually appear in this series, unfortunately. Because the final episode had Reno, Kuboshi, Minimin and Ririan going to fashion school instead.
I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity to not have Ayame go to the weaving one. Like, I think it was Kubo and Nano. They went to the one where they did weaving, right? And we know Ayame is interested in that.
Yeah, Ayame can knit, can't she?
Yeah, and she's a really good leader. Like, my mom did a bit, and so I know a little bit about how long it takes, and Ayame can do it very fast, so she's probably really good at it. And I was thinking about her a bit, and I noticed she was a bit of a model for one of the companies that produce material for all sort of leading use. And I think judging from those, we can tell Ayame is really good at leading, and it just seems like a huge missed opportunity to me that
Yeah,
they
it
didn't
does. It
set
does.
them.
Although I do think that Kuboshi in particular was very well chosen because she
Mm-hmm.
really got into it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that like Reno and Kuboshi went to the knitting department of the fashion school. And,
Mm-hmm.
like Kuboshi, like straight away sort of like got into it. She sort of like started talking with the students about like the various kinds of wool. And I think that they really sort of like reacted well to her because she seemed to be genuinely interested in what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I actually thought like Kuboshi in particular was just like really, really good throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, you can really see how friendly and approachable Kubo is throughout the show, and I think that explains proper appeal and why she's doing so well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like yeah, like the students really, really seem to like her, and Kuboshi made like knitted like a sort of like small present for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like she's just a beginner, so I think that would have taken her like a long time. It's actually quite a significant
Mm-hmm.
investment, so it's just like a very, very nice thing for her to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like almost inevitably, Miniman and Ridian got sent to sort of like the sort of like high concept
Mm.
department,
Yeah.
and Miniman and Ridian's group sort of like won the contest that all the students in the school were entering. It was kind of feels a little bit unfair because Miniman is a kind of like multiple girls award model. So like the sort of like the sort of level of modelling that group had is just sort of like quite unfairly light years ahead of everyone else.
Yeah. On the side note, this is not directly related. I thought that guy in the high concept group looked totally like Lucio in Overwatch.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he's a guy with
Like
like
very,
curly
very,
hair.
very, very handsome man. Unfortunately, I felt quite inadequate while I was watching him.
I feel you. I feel you. Like the hair that he had at the beginning. I mean, he's straight up later, but he had this very large curly hair.
Yeah.
Like that's the hair the character.
Like and like yeah, like handsome and talented, just kind of like pissed me off slightly watching that. Anyway,
Yeah, no worries. I get that.
anyway, I just wanted to also talk a little bit about the recent lives that have been happening.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, like I feel like we can't talk too much about them because like they haven't been. I think that the one of the lives was streamed, was it not?
Yes, the under one.
But unfortunately, like I didn't watch it, so I don't really have that much to say about them.
No
Um,
worries.
but
I can talk about it a little bit.
I think is it the case that we had an undergrad live, sorry, an undergirls live, a
Hmm.
fourth gen live, and was there also a live to commemorate Sing Out being released, or was that the fourth gen live?
No, I think they're two separate live.
Yeah. So like I can't say too much about the specifics of the lives because I didn't actually get to watch any of them. But it is a really good sign that Nogizaka can do such different kinds of live so
Hmm.
successfully in such a short period of time.
Hmm. Yeah, and one other thing I like about the Underlive, which I mean I haven't watched the full thing yet, but I did watch like the first 1/3 of it, I guess, and is that they often take these songs that they want to perform, and they perform them with only a few members. So, for example, from the song I watched them perform, there was Against, which we know is a Senbatsu song, and it was performed by Maya, Nano, and Nenachi,
Hmm.
and I thought that was really cool. And then they perform Suribori. which is, Nanase's solo song. And that was performed by Juna and Karin. It was a nice duet, and, you don't usually see that, right? And there's also Kokoro the Monologue by Kana and who else? Kana and two other members. But yeah, basically I'm saying they take some song and then they mix it up a bit, and it's especially nice when you can see only a few members perform them, because you get to see each of them more and you can hear their solo line and you can see their individual dance, and that's one of the biggest appeal to me. So I'm very glad they streamed the Underlive, because I think it's a treat.
This is one of the things, while we were talking about Vince, one of the things that we discussed being most appealing about Undergirl's lives is that Senbatsu lives are great, but they do tend to be a little bit safe in the choices they make. Whereas Undergirl's lives, as you said, you've got a situation where lots of members are performing songs that they're not known for, and also the sort of makeup of the groups are very different. So it's like sometimes you'll get duets, or sometimes you get like small groups doing like a song which would normally be done by an entire senbatsu together. So it is really nice to see both members and songs in very new contexts, ones we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's also a nice thing about last year's summer tour, the Chikachu produced thing that they released with their album. Like, you see the member themselves decide to do these concept and throw in their own take on it. Like, remember Ikujang's version of Nogi Meadow. And yeah, like these are very fun to see, and hopefully they will happen more, not just beside Underlive, but like in other lives as well.
So, just out of curiosity, is the center for the Underlive, was it generally Ranza this time?
Yeah, I think it's general Ranze. I didn't see the whole live yet, but the first few songs it was mostly Ranze, yeah.
Right.
Although, like, if there's like under song that have a center that present their performance, for example, 13 Ichino Kinyobi and Yuri's there, so Yudan center 13 Ichino Kinyobi.
Yeah, so I also, before we move on, I also wanted to mention that this group of lives were the final lives for Karin and Yutan. So, I just wanted to say a few words of appreciation for them, because Yutan has always been a very, very positive influence in the group. She's a very positive character. I always really enjoyed seeing her either on TV or when they were performing, and just someone who I think really gave a lot without asking for much back.
Yeah, I agree. She's always a cheerful presence, and she's been here since she's first gen, right? So she's been here since forever, and she's always a member that was there to entertain people. And I don't feel like there's much negative to say about her. So even though she isn't the most successful member, she did her part, and everybody know her. Everybody appreciate her cheerfulness that she brings.
Yeah, and I think while Yutan wasn't the member used most by management, I feel as though sometimes I kind of feel disappointed when members graduate, because they graduate without ever really having appeared that much. Whereas Yutan appeared a decent number of times. For example, especially when second gens graduate, I kind of feel disappointed about it, because quite a lot of them never appeared on an A side or anything like that, whereas that doesn't apply to Yutan. Yutan wasn't massively used by management, but I kind of feel like she won't look back on her career with regrets of I never got to do this or that. But I kind of feel in contrast to her, Karen is graduating without having been on an A side, which I think it's a shame, because there's enough spaces in Senbatsu that I don't ever really think that's something that should happen with a member, especially when they're one that's sort of like been a member of the group for this long.
Yeah. Like, Karin been a prominent feature of Nogi as well. Second gen only came in a year and a half after first gen, so they've been here for as long as many fans can remember. And it's really a shame that many second gen haven't been an ASI for even runs yet. And I really hope they address that soon. So Juna, Nenachi, etc. I hope they can get into the buzz soon.
Yeah, especially because like Karen was always like a member who struck me as being, like I think the group was lucky to have someone so very professional. Like she was always someone who sort of approached the products that she was involved with in a very positive way, but she also seemed like very adult as well. And I do think it's quite important that the dressing room has people like that. Like very sort of adult, reliable people.
Yeah, she's very mature and competent, I think, and like for the minor things that are not obvious to an idol, like just being able to organize things, I think she's very good at that, and that's a side we don't get to see often. So I think in that sense, I feel like she's somewhat underappreciated.
Yeah, I mean, she almost felt like a little bit like a sub-captain of the members that she knew. Because, I mean, somebody like Mai-Chun is, like, older, but doesn't have the same kind of sense of being, like, implicitly reliable at all times. I think, like Karen had that, so it was a shame to see her go, especially with her never having been on an A side, but... Yeah. I think one of the nice, we were talking about it being nice that Undergirls' lives often have things that you wouldn't see in other concerts, and one of the things was Karen has kind of like been a long-term sort of like fan of Kazumin, like less a friend and more of a fan, and she got to perform Naitate Ijanaika, which was a song that Kaz centered, and Kaz had like gone to watch her, so it was nice to sort of like have that feeling of like Karen joined as an idol fan, and like while she didn't get to appear in a lot of the more public things, like she still got to do the job of an idol, and she still got to interact with idols, which is something she clearly always wanted to do. So it is nice to see like that part of her, like desires being like fulfilled.
Yeah. Another thing that is good for her, I guess, is that she made a lot of friends in Nogi, and Suika is a very tight knit group, and she's friends with Nanase, and not many people get to be able to say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like talking about Suika, I'd like to, like move on to one of the other things, which is that, like Suika had a sort of surprise showroom reunion. I mean, this is like very unusual because I feel like Nogizaka members don't come back for stuff very much. Like,
No.
especially not compared to AKB. Because like AKB members come back for stuff all the time, but like Suika had a sort of reunion which included Nanase, even though she's like obviously like very busy with her career after Nogizaka, and all the members attended and just sort of like seemed to have like a really nice time, and it did sort of show that this does seem to have been a group of members who were like very close friends for a good reason.
Yeah, the funny thing about Streetcar is that it's not really even initially a entertainment thing. It's not like something they created for the job, for the show, for idol purpose. It was just a group who enjoy traveling together. So they were a tight-knit friend group to begin with. So it's kind of funny that it becomes something that's a bit more broadly known. But yeah, we can see how tight they are based on the fact that their company came here and did their showroom. And I also liked how I mean, this group is show to thing like they went on Nogichu and many other things before, and it's often mentioned how cutting is the one that kind of pull them together when they're traveling and did a lot of the heavy lifting for the travel. So
Yeah.
here's another aspect showing us how cutting is like very organized and very relied upon. I also the other thing I like is it shows that Nanase's friend circle, she doesn't really pick people based on like popularity or success.
Yeah, well, I
'cause-
mean, it's interesting that Nanase is famously paired up with Kaz a lot, but Kaz is not in this group.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I always wonder. I was wondering, is it because cars don't travel out as much?
I mean,
Does
that
it-
you know, like that would be a very convenient explanation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like it doesn't feel like cars travel abroad as much compared to these people. Like we know Maijun and Matsun and Neikov, they band together and travel to Korea and Hawaii and other places like that. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe Kaz is just like super. Is like just like a super homebody because like even her PB was shot in Chiba, so
yeah, possibly. But yeah, I was just saying, I feel like Nanase usually don't really care about this thing. Like if you look at Shrika, she's way more popular than all other four members in the group. And if you look at her other close friend, it's often like that too.
yeah. Although having said that,
Mhm.
there was like another sort of interesting, piece of interaction where like Nanase and Mayan both sort of like posted a picture of them, like making like one half of a heart symbol, and if you put it together, it just like looks as though they're sort of like making the heart sign together. So I think that the Narchan Mayan relationship there definitely is something there.
hmm Yeah, that was very fun. It's like a masterful marketing move, like having these two accounts do this thing.
Yeah, like I think it's nice because I think we'll never really know how close like idol friendships are.
hmm
But it is nice to know that like Mayan and Narchan do genuinely seem to appreciate each other.
hmm Yeah, I agree. Like it would be really cool if there's more collaboration, like above this. This was already surprising to me, but if they do more, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So moving on, I just
Mhm.
want to talk a little bit about there was one slightly surprising bit of news, which was that Minimum was in BLT Graph,
Mhm.
which technically counts as a photo book, and
Mm.
she managed to top the weekly photo book charts. Now,
Mhm.
I'm kind of like slightly familiar with the photo book charts. There are a couple of magazine publications which technically are counted as photo books for some reason. BLT Graph is the one which appears most frequently, but it's still quite unusual for BLT Graph to actually top the photo book weekly charts.
Mhm.
So like I've seen this. I've actually seen this particular photo shoot. It's really really good. So
Mm.
I'm quite satisfied. But it makes me wonder whether, if things like this keep happening, whether we might actually see a Minimum photo book sooner rather than later. Like I know I'm definitely hoping for it.
I think it's definitely about time. She's popular. She's a actual model. She always goes on the Girls Award, and Virgin haven't got a lot of photo book yet. So
Yeah, it's
I
only
definitely
Yoda so far, right?
yes, it's just Yoda, which is a little bit surprising. I mean, she's really popular, but she's not the most model-like person, I guess.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'd really like one because I think that not only is Minimin like maybe the most photogenic third gen member, like maybe Zuki is instead,
Mm,
but she feels like more modelish, and I kind of feel like I appreciate that kind of photo book more. So I'm kind
mm,
of hoping that she is the next third gen member who gets one.
mm. I personally do find her more photogenic than Mitsuki.
Mm.
To be honest, I find Yoda very photogenic as well. Like she looks very good in her photos.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever actually. I mean, I've never seen a bad Yoda photo.
Hmm. Yeah, like if you just look at her height and in person, you might not think of her as a good model. But I mean, and she might not be the best walkway model, but I think her photos are always like gorgeous
Yeah.
and very very cute. So I think she definitely is very photogenic.
Yeah, like I think that if you compare Yoda to like a lot of the more like classically like pretty like beautiful members in Nogizaka, like
Hmm.
she's got a more kind of like cute looking face,
Hmm.
but you know like you can't take a bad photo of her,
Mm.
which I actually think is like part of the reason why she got like the job with Asuka doing the GRL modeling,
Mm.
because it like you know you can't take a bad photo of Yoda, so if you sort of like get her to wear your stuff, like
Hmm.
it's going to end up looking good at the end of the day.
Yeah, and maybe that is partly explain why she's like modeling for Markia and Biz now actually.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is a bit of news. Like Yoda was made a official model for Makia and Biz
Hmm.
um, at the same time, which I
Yeah.
mean that's something new as well, isn't it? I don't
Hmm.
think we've had this in Nogizaka before, like a member becoming a official model for two magazines straight off the bat.
Yeah, not straight off the bat. Ma Yang eventually became the official model for both Ray and Narn. But that was another like something that happened immediately that because Narn didn't exist when she became a Ray model, and then Narn was created afterward. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I'm guessing Markia and Biz are not the same type of magazine because usually when you become an official model, what they're trying to do is to have a exclusivity to it. So when Maya
I
become
mean,
the model for
it's
Ray,
interesting because I thought that if Yoda ever became like a model for some kind of like fashion magazine, it would be like a sort of like cuteness oriented one.
mm,
And you know, like I can't exactly claim to be some kind of expert on Japanese fashion magazines, like obviously, but Makia and Biz both seem, you know, like older, you know, like older teen, young woman oriented. So I kind of thought that like Yoda would sort of like if she became model would be for something sort of like younger teen, sort of like cuteness
mm,
based fashion, but I don't think Makia and Biz are that.
Markia definitely doesn't seem like that. Like I'm not sure about Biz. I need to look that up. But yeah,
I mean,
like it
Biz
would.
I think is sort of like is aimed at like older teens and young women, but it's not street fashion or anything.
Hmm. Like the one that would have made a lot of sense for Yoda would have been 17, I think.
Yeah,
This, I think this might work for her. I can imagine Yoda in this, but yeah, Markia was a big surprise.
you know, like at this point, I do want to just sort of like point out that Biz the Fashion magazine has got absolutely nothing to do with the WAC group whatsoever. It's completely unrelated.
What's the rap group?
The WAC Biz the idol group, BIS.
Oh, yeah, I heard of them. I'm not so familiar with them, but I don't know they're Iraqi.
So
Hmm.
so there's that. Another bit of news is Nogiego has inducted a fourth member to replace Yutan, who's obviously leaving the show with her, you know, like graduation having been confirmed.
Hmm.
The new member is going to be Den-chan. I do kind of understand. I think, you know, we were talking about the members who, you know, in an ideal world we would have had, and I think we were both sort of like looking at people like Hori and Ikichan. You know,
Hmm.
the more like chaotic, the more sort of like reliably chaotic members. But the problem is that a lot of the members who I think would do best on Nogiego are also the ones who are least available.
Yeah, that's
So I
unfortunate.
don't know how Den-chan's gonna do. I have no idea how. But there are some promising signs in the outro of the most recent episode where I think Suzuki refers to her being almost as bad as Maya. So anyone who's almost as bad as Maya has got to sort of like be pretty good for entertainment value, I think.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see her. Like, I shouldn't be, but I was, because I don't know. I thought it would be Miona or Kijang because they're both doing well.
I was
but they're
hoping
not.
it would be Ki-chan because Ki-chan is very, very good on this kind of thing, but is also slightly more available.
Yeah, like
Um,
that was the logic I was thinking too. Miona and Kijang don't seem to be as busy as like Asuka or Ikujang or.
but maybe Ki-chan's patience is too short for Nogizaka.
Her no was quite a classic though. It's a
Yeah,
really good name.
I still use the screen cap of that to this day.
Yeah.
So just another couple of little things. I think a lot of people have already seen this, but Manhattan was like the poster girl for a public fire safety thing. And I can sort of like say that personally, I never read public safety adverts, so Manhattan being on one is the only thing that would make me want to read it. So good for her. It's public safety is something we can all get behind. So good on Manhattan for being part of the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess in Japan there's a similar problem where people don't really read it, so now at least the Noki fans should read it.
Yeah. And also, I haven't actually seen the episode yet, but Nogizaka were on Tetsuko's show. And so we've sort of like had like yet another Asuka meme. She really does reliably generate them like pretty much constantly with Asuka at some point kind of like pulled her like face mask up over her head, and it pretty much covers everything but her dome. Like that's how tiny her head is. So we've got yet another Asuka meme. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Tetsuko's pretty like a decently big deal, I guess. Her show is in noon, which is an interesting time frame. Unfortunately, she's not like as good as she used to be. I think she had her heart attack a long time ago.
Yeah,
So
Tetsuko's 85, so
yeah, so she's not the most fluent interviewer, but I'm sure most of us won't mind that, and it's good to see that they brought out a lot of interesting topic, and they also show like photos of them when they were young, and some of them are new, so
yeah,
that's always cool.
But I've run out of all the various little news bits I wanted to talk about. So, have you got anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
No, like everything I have in mind were included in your list, and it's pretty comprehensive, I think. And if there's anything else minor, I don't think necessarily like discussion worthy.
Cool, that's great then. So that's goodbye from me, John.
And for me, Rusty.